This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Tuesday, July 21st. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. With nearly 15 million confirmed coronavirus cases and nearly 610,000 fatalities, researchers are reporting progress in the race to develop a safe and effective vaccine against COVID-19. Two different experimental vaccines, one developed in a joint venture between Britain's Oxford University and British-Swedish drug maker AstraZeneca, the other by Chinese biotech firm Cansino biologics, are producing strong immune responses in late-stage human trials, according to two peer-reviewed studies published Monday in the British medical journal The Lancet. The vaccine developed by the Oxford-AstraZeneca partnership is receiving the most attention, with the company having signed agreements with many governments to supply its vaccine if it's proved to be effective and granted regulatory approval. The company has already committed to making 2 billion doses. According to the New York Times, the doses have been administered to more than 10,000 volunteers in Britain, Brazil, and South Africa, with 30,000 participants in the United States set to receive the experimental vaccine next week. Meanwhile, European Union leaders reached an agreement early Tuesday on a coronavirus relief package. The deal earmarks $857 billion in COVID-19 funding that will be issued as loans and grants to the hardest hit countries. A group of 17 nurses who are playing active role in national efforts to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic in Libya are describing the situation as harder than war. The health workers left their families to treat coronavirus patients at the Saba Medical Center in southern Libya when the outbreak hit that part of the country more than a month ago. We get more in this report from Channels Television in Nigeria.
Fatima Amtir, head nurse at Saba Medical Center in southern Libya, is among 16 other nurses who have been treating COVID-19 patients at the health facility since the coronavirus pandemic hit the country. Like the rest of the team, she has not seen their family in over a month.
I miss my family. I haven't seen them for over a month. Yesterday, my mother, who has cancer, was not feeling well, so she came to the hospital to take a nasal swab test, but I couldn't even hug her. I don't know if I'll ever see her again. I witnessed all the events that happened in 2011, and I never missed a working day in the hospital, not even a single day. But this time during this pandemic, I can't go home. I can't even hug my parents. I don't know if I'll see them again.
Nurses working at the medical center have since become permanent residents because all their time is devoted to the COVID-19 fight. Although not officially designated as a COVID-19 facility, the hospital, which is the largest healthcare facility in southern Libya, has been receiving patients and conducting widespread testing among visitors and staff, especially after 19 healthcare workers tested positive for the coronavirus and had to be isolated.
Honestly, this hurts. Nurses were treating patients even when they did not expect to be tested positive. But then their tests came out positive, and my colleagues continued to treat the patients even when they found that they were COVID-19 patients. But yesterday, when my colleagues were tested for COVID-19, the tests came out positive. I was in shock more than any other person. Some have accepted the situation, and some have not.
Although the remote southern part of Libya spared for months after the first virus arrived in Libya in April, the region has been badly hit by high infection rates. According to figures released by the International Committee of the Red Cross on July the 9th, the area reported 512 confirmed cases, making up 46% of the country's total of more than 1,300 confirmed coronavirus cases, including 38 deaths.
That report was from Channels Television in Nigeria. Kenya-based reporter Ruud Elmendorp has been trapped in Tanzania for 4 months due to the coronavirus pandemic. The country on April 29th reported 509 cases of COVID-19, but no figures have been published since then. President John Magufuli announced in June the country was virus-free, but Elmendorp decided to do his own survey, and this is what he found.
I don't know how I did it, but I happen to be in the only country out of 188 that officially got rid of the coronavirus. This sanctuary on Mikadi Beach in Dar es Salaam has kept us safe from the coronavirus for the last 4 months because it's outside the urban area. But now that the government says the pandemic is officially over, I wonder what Dar es Salaam looks like. The first leap of faith is to take the ferry to the central business district. No face masks here, no distancing. Still, I am wearing a face mask and trying to keep some distance. This is the center of Dar es Salaam, and it looks just like it used to be before COVID. Busy and full of activity. The people say there's no corona in Tanzania. The waitress says corona is in Italy and not Tanzania. You know, if there's corona, it would unfortunately mean that vulnerable people die of it. So I decided to visit a few graveyards, but I didn't see any abnormal activities there. Also, I visited a hospital, but it was all normal operations. So what's going on in Tanzania? Because in surrounding countries, the number of infections is rising alarmingly. Many people believe it is because of this magical brew developed in Tanzania. It is made of indigenous herbs, and according to the shopkeeper here, 3,000 bottles were sold in just a few days. So from what I see, it might actually be safe in Tanzania. You know, at the beach lodge we're staying, we didn't hear any cases of the staff being infected or their family members. So did Tanzania really do it? Did they manage to tackle the virus as the first country in the world? But according to a friend who works at the international organization, we still have to be careful. The virus is out there, so no more going to the disco. While having an indigenous Tanzanian pilau, I listened to the address of the president of Kenya. He announced that on August 1st, the Kenyan skies will be open, and that I can go home. Ruud Elmendorp for VOA News, Dar es Salaam.
The recent death of popular Ethiopian musician Haacaaluu Hundeessa heightened ethnic tensions in the nation. It sparked violent demonstrations around Addis Ababa, which quickly spread to the Oromia region, where Hundeessa was born. At least 160 people died. Authorities blocked the internet and arrested dozens of people, including a prominent media mogul, a government critic, Jawal Mohammed. Africa 54's managing editor Vincent Makori spoke with Bilen Siyum, the spokesperson for Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, and asked her to respond to accusations that the government had a hand in the death of Hundeessa.
It's quite a preposterous accusation that is being put towards the government in terms of involvement in that. I mean, there are certain groups, obviously, that would perpetuate this wrong narrative, but a majority of Ethiopians do understand that this is a wrong narrative that is being perpetuated because the government has got no reason or no cause at all to do anything this disruptive. Because you've seen after Haacaaluu's untimely death and killing, the situation, the way that it evolved into a loss of many lives, into destruction of a lot of property, people's livelihoods that have gone down to ashes in a matter of moments that have been accumulated over time. There is no reason for the government to do that to itself. So there are clear linkages, and the perpetrators have also come forward and confessed. So How, in terms of how the government is dealing with this, it's by ensuring and maintaining the rule of law and bringing forth all of those that are accountable in relation to the killing of Haacaaluu, but as well as with all of the other disruptive scenarios and incidents that took place, holding people accountable and bringing them to justice as well.
Now, one of the reasons why some may be led to believe that that is a possibility that the government can do that is because, according to human rights reports, there have been so many extrajudicial killings of people, especially in the western Oromia area, abduction of young university students and disappearance of some of the Oromo opposition leaders. How can you explain that?
Well, with regards to that, I think we need to have a bit of a perspective with regards to context, because I think in terms of reporting, again, this is critical work that human rights organizations are doing, but it also needs to be founded on context and really understanding the dynamics and the complex political environment at play. As you would recall, 2.5 years ago, when the new administration came into the fore, it came with huge sweeping reforms, not just introducing them or just not mentioning them, but there were a series of reforms that took place within a span of a very short period of time. These reforms have been the backbone of, or the foundation for, the democratization path and process that Ethiopia is on. Part of these reforms have also looked at the very repressive nature of the previous regime and the previous political environment that Ethiopia has been part of. So really looking back and laying the foundation for all of the ills that had been inherited from the previous administration as well, and the repressive nature where a lot of political parties, a lot of media entities, and a lot of individuals had been imprisoned for their political consciousness and for their political activism and the views that they held. So a key component of this administration's reforms, particularly in the political arena, has been opening the playing field, making it wide open, inviting all of those that had been brandished by the previous regime under a terrorism act to come into the country and engage in peaceful struggle. So this has this invitation has included political parties that were engaged in armed struggle for several years. They were asked to come back into the country, lay down their arms, and engage peacefully. The same thing for media entities. So many political parties have also come and are engaging in that peaceful process. But there are some elements who have not. Let me just wrap up my thought here. But there are some elements that have not done that as well, and instead have taken and resorted back to their previous ways of engaging in terrorizing communities as well.
Some are saying the same tactics that were used before, the same tactics that actually led to the fall of the previous coalition, are the same that are being used. I mean, would you deny that at this time the internet is being shut down, not only in the Western Oromia, but entire Ethiopia, which was a tactic that was used before? Would you deny that opposition leaders are having a hard time? For example, Jawar Mohammed has been a number of times arrested or his house just barricaded. There's also the disappearance. Up to now, nobody knows where Abdi Regasa is. Can those be denied at this point?
Vincent, I mean, I'm not entirely sure where the information, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know of any instances where Jawar Mohammed has been arrested before. The arrest that took place recently in relation to the incident is not necessarily anything related to political activism or political thought. It is purely an incident that's attached with the unlawful hijacking of Haacaaluu's remains against the wishes of his family to be buried in Ambo town. So there's accusation and there are suspects according to what the Attorney General has put forth and the police have put forth. These arrests have been done because of their involvement in incidents that put the constitutional order into threat. So I wouldn't say the same tactics are being used to repress individuals' rights. They're not tactics that are being used to take political action against people that are voicing different concerns and ideas. With regards to the internet that you talk about, internet has already been partially restored. And I've said this before as well, the internet is a powerful tool. It's a necessary communication tool. It's a tool for development, but it's also a tool that can be utilized by certain groups to create havoc, like we have seen on the fortnight after Haacaaluu's death. So there was a lot of incitement of hate, vitriol, inciting people to go out and actually undertake all of these destructive efforts or destructive tactics on property and damaging lives. And there were calls for communal, ethnic, and religious violence that were being spread through social media, using the internet by individuals that are sitting in the comforts of their homes, removed from their reality in North America and Europe. So the internet has also a very dark side that we all need to acknowledge and put it into context.
That was Africa 54 managing editor Vincent Makori speaking with Bileni Siyum, spokesperson for Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. In part 2 of the interview, Siyum responds to the accusations that the government is still using old repressive tactics against its citizens. Zimbabwe police arrested a journalist and an activist Monday on allegations of incitement to participate in public violence. Beatrice Mtetwa, lawyer for journalist Hopewell Chinono, says police abducted Chinono from his home after they broke the front door glass to gain access. Mtetwa says the police are alleging that Chinono and Jacob Garivume, leader of the Transform Zimbabwe movement, called on Zimbabweans to demonstrate against poor governance on July 31. An allegation Mtetwa says Chinono is denying. Supporters of Ivory Coast's ruling RHDP party are waiting anxiously to see if President Alassane Ouattara, 78, will accept an offer to be the party's candidate for the October 31st election. Ouattara is concluding his second and final term, and the party is scrambling to find a candidate following the sudden death of Prime Minister Amadou Coulibaly and the resignation of Vice President Daniel Kablan Duncan this month. RHDP Executive Secretary Adama Bictogo says he had asked Ouattara to run because a majority of party supporters believe he can help the party avoid a bitter succession battle. But Ivorian journalist Felix Boni says Ouattara cannot run because of an age limitation. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, a Senegalese designer uses her math skills to create beautiful designs. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Lynn Ormodou, your VOA Health correspondent. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the World Health Organization says there are currently no drugs licensed for the treatment or prevention of COVID-19, and there is no proof that hydroxychloroquine or any other drug can cure or prevent coronavirus. The misuse of hydroxychloroquine can cause serious side effects, illness, and even lead to death. For more information on COVID-19, visit who.int or contact your local or national health authorities.
Welcome back to Africa 54. As public health officials attempt to manage the spread of COVID-19, knowing how many people in a city or neighborhood are infected is key. But challenges to widespread population testing are leading many cities to look for data under manhole covers. Yes, sewage may be essential to spotting the next outbreak. Mark Debo reports.
When the Grand Princess cruise ship docked in Oakland, California in early March, carrying passengers and crew infected with coronavirus, Eileen White faced a daunting task. White is the director of wastewater for the utility that serves 685,000 households in San Francisco's East Bay area.
They came into the port of Oakland with a cruise ship full of waste, and they needed to get rid of it. And so we effectively treated, some of the first coronavirus sewage
Detecting the virus in sewage is a necessary step toward effectively destroying it. Soon it became clear that detection might be useful in other ways, too.
Early on, we were approached by a number of universities. Would we want to, help be part of the process and trying to figure out how sewage could be a useful tool as an early indicator of the presence of coronavirus in the community versus waiting for people to show up in the hospital.
Patient testing on a scale necessary to control the virus has been hampered for many reasons. Not everyone is getting tested, but everyone uses the bathroom.
You're seeing in the sewage before people are really showing the symptoms, days and weeks before.
White's team is collecting samples each week and sending them to multiple labs, including the Nelson Lab at the University of California, Berkeley.
We're really interested in trends of increasing or decreasing infections, and that would help guide decision making.
But getting useful data from raw sewage also has many challenges.
There's a lot of things that make wastewater complicated, right? So it's not just poop and pee in wastewater, it's also rainwater and laundry water and things that vary with time. And so that will affect how dilute the virus is in the sample, like how much we can detect.
Wastewater epidemiologists have successfully tracked polio and Ebola, but the scale of the COVID-19 crisis is spurring an unprecedented rapid response. An international alliance of over 400 researchers is collaborating weekly on methods and standards. Massachusetts-based BioBot Analytics currently analyzes wastewater samples from 41 states in the U.S. using machine learning.
Wastewater data that you measure today is giving you an early warning indication of how many new COVID-19 cases you will see in that community about 7 days out.
This is because in the first few days of infection, people often have no symptoms and are not getting tested, but are still shedding the virus when they use the bathroom.
Wastewater gives you that window of opportunity.
Detecting outbreaks earlier can help health officials distribute resources and save lives.
The amount of value that people suddenly see in wastewater, I think, is refreshing to realize that it is this catchment of all of society and that we have a way of tracking important diseases. And I think it'll probably be used going well into the future as well.
The Nelson Lab at Berkeley plans to monitor sewage on their own campus this fall to support the university's safe reopening. For VOA News, Matt Dibble, Berkeley, California.
Congressional Democrats condemned the Trump administration Monday, calling for an immediate investigation into the use of federal law enforcement officers to arrest peaceful protesters in the northwestern U.S. city of Portland, Oregon last week. But President Trump defended the practice, saying some U.S. cities have lost control of protests over the death of George Floyd in police custody in late May. VOA's congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson has more.
In Portland over the weekend, escalating tensions. Protesters massed around police buildings, some committing vandalism and briefly setting a police building on fire, before everyone fled the area amid warnings from law enforcement. That civil unrest coming as congressional Democrats demand answers on reports peaceful protesters in Portland are being arrested by unidentified federal authorities. President Trump defended that federal intervention Monday.
We have more federal law enforcement, that I can tell you. In Portland, they've done a fantastic job.
But local authorities say they don't need federal help.
Your presence here isn't wanted. It's not needed.
Federal assistance is making mostly peaceful protests worse, according to the state's governor.
It's like pouring gasoline on a fire.
A group of self-described mothers formed a human wall Sunday to protect protesters from federal tactical units. And Democratic Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib vowed on Twitter she would protect her own city of Detroit after Trump said federal authorities may be needed to address rising violence in other U.S. cities.
Put down your need for violence.
Local religious leaders are planning a peace march to try to calm tensions, even as the state of Oregon sues multiple federal agencies for what it says was the illegal detention of U.S. citizens. Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Washington.
A Senegalese mathematician turned designer is putting her knowledge of algorithms and equations into good use, not to solve mathematical problems, but to create intricate and bold designs for her fast-growing brand. Let's take a look in this report from Channels TV in Nigeria.
Mathematical equations may not seem to go hand in hand with fashion, but Senegalese designer Diarra Bossu believes otherwise, and blending both perfectly. The multidisciplinary artist and former Wall Street trader can usually be found going through mathematical equations and algorithms that will go into the designs of her textiles. At her studio in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, Diarra uses plots, lines, and curves into shapes that are then hand-painted based on different color schemes. Diarra dreamed of being a fashion designer since she was a little girl, and her dream unexpectedly became a reality when she joined a mathematics program at Stanford. She was inspired to use math and graphing equations to capture her creative process, finally marrying her two passions, mathematics and fashion design.
In all my free time, I would be drawing these parabolas and these lines and all these things we're learning and trying to ask myself, why should the kids care? And in the process of doing so, patterns would come up. So I'm graphing, doodling, and this is kind of what I would do in my free time when I'm in the train, when I'm sitting waiting at the restaurant. I'm just drawing, doodling, doing all these lines. And then when it would finish, I'd be like, wow, this is amazing. But then I can't create it again because it was all by hand on a piece of paper. And I have like hundreds of pages of papers like this. And I was like, what if I could save these somewhere? And what if I could come back to the doodle and adjust it? What if I don't like the doodle and I want to change it?
Despite her little experience in the fashion industry, Diarra forged ahead and launched her fashion line in 2015. In September 2019, she won the coveted Designer in Residence at the San Francisco Fashion Incubator. But she's still very much hands-on creatively and technically.
Each shape can be represented by a mathematical equation. And now when you put all these equations together, you can create lots of shapes, which is nothing new. I think the part that makes this different is that when you can actually code it all and generate it with an algorithm, meaning that a process telling the computer, graph this line, graph this equation, find where they intersect, make it blue, do this, do that, do that. Now the computer is drawing for you, but you have to sell it. I'm not using machine learning and AI yet. Right now I'm still writing all the algorithms myself.
Diarra believes she's ahead of the curve, even in an industry currently being disrupted by technological innovation. As an African woman in the industry, she wants to use her newfound recognition to celebrate the work of those who are yet to be recognized.
People like me don't get celebrated much in the industry. And when I have that opportunity, I want to make noise for all of us. And that's the goal. That's the goal of the work I do. That's the purpose of. And that's why it's so important for me when I talk about algorithms. It's like, yes, but we're merging algorithms and tradition. We're not just algorithms and that's it. I come from a place that deserves to be celebrated, and it's the core of who I am, and it's the core of what I do.
The designer, who shuttles between Senegal and San Francisco, is gradually building her brand into a global brand and says she wants to keep telling stories celebrating her African heritage while innovating by using technology sustainably.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thank you for watching.